Hey there, folks. This is Caleb. I'm just walking through my neighborhood here in Brooklyn. And I wanted to make a video and just kind of speak up about the Iran deal, because there's all this talk that Donald Trump may actually decertify the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that was agreed on at the Geneva talks, and may actually decertify the Iran deal of the United States. Now, he couldn't do it himself. He would have to go back to Congress in order to get it done. But I've noticed that the way the mainstream media is talking about Iran is just completely delusional. They don't get it. So let's first talk about the Iran deal. All right, the Iran deal, the way the media talks about it, both sides are lying, okay? Number one, I've been to Iran. Iran does not want nuclear weapons. This is just a fact. Iran does not want nuclear weapons. Their constitution forbids nuclear weapons. The founder of the Islamic Republic, the Ayatollah, he does not believe in nuclear weapons. He did not believe in nuclear weapons. Every nuclear power site in Iran is monitored by the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA. They are there to make sure that none of the technology is being utilized to create weapons. The entire thing is being monitored. Why does Iran want nuclear power? Well, Iran is an exporting country. It's an oil exporting country. That's their primary source of revenue for the state. And so they want to develop nuclear power so that they use as little of their own energy as possible and can sell as much of it on the international markets as they possibly can. That's the idea. And that's the same reason, interestingly, that Iran is also funding fusion energy. Iran is a big funder of research regarding fusion energy because they want to look into other methods of developing energy so they can sell their oil and not use it domestically. So the debate is premised on kind of a false premise. So we have, on the one side, we have the Republicans that are saying, oh no, this deal is going to give Iran nuclear weapons. We have the Democrats saying, oh no, this deal prevented Iran from getting nuclear weapons. Iran does not want nuclear weapons. Iran is not pursuing nuclear weapons. It's fully compliant with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It's one of the biggest supporters of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They're not going to acquire nuclear weapons. They don't want to. So that's just a false premise. This idea that Iran is trying to get nuclear weapons so they can blow up the world or blow up Israel or blow up the USA, this is a lot of propaganda. Iran wants to defend itself. It does fear attack by Israel and attack by the United States. That's why it has a huge ballistic missile defense system to deter any such attack. But at this point, the USA has thousands of nuclear weapons, according to Colin Powell's email, and Israel has hundreds of nuclear weapons. The idea that Iran would get one and test it, that's just not reality. So let's throw that out. So what is Donald Trump saying? Now, he's saying that Iran has not lived up to what he calls the spirit of the agreement. Now, this is very interesting, the spirit of the agreement. He's not saying that Iran hasn't followed the agreement. And in fact, all the major powers, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, all the major powers have said that Iran has actually fully complied with the agreement. They've turned over almost all of their uranium. They've shut down their nuclear power facilities in agreement with the United States, with the P5+1 talks. They're complying. They're doing what they are supposed to do. Donald Trump says that Iran is not following the spirit of the agreement. So what is the spirit of the agreement? He claims that Iran is supporting terrorism throughout the Middle East. Well, first of all, support for other groups around the region was specifically not included in the agreement. Now, that was one thing that the USA that Iran did not agree to. So that's not included in the agreement. And second of all, support for other countries throughout the region. They call this supporting terrorism. Now, it's not proven what Iran is and is not doing. And I have no way of knowing. But the allegation is that Iran supports people in Bahrain who are struggling against an absolute monarchy and want democracy. Well, is that terrorism? I mean, the majority of the people in Bahrain are Shia Muslims. However, the rulers who are in bed with Saudi Arabia, the monarchy of Bahrain, they're Sunnis. And they're backed by the U.S. They have military bases set up for the U.S. government, and as well for the British and for other powerful European countries. And they rule over the population. It's a dictatorship. And if you're a Shia Muslim, you don't have the same level of rights. So the allegation is that Iran is supporting the majority of the people in Bahrain who are Shia Muslims fighting against this monarchy and demanding democracy. Is that terrorism? Does that sound like terrorism? It doesn't sound like terrorism to me. The other allegation is that Iran is supporting Hezbollah. Now, it's important to remember that Hezbollah is a big important figure. It's a political party in Lebanon. It's one of the biggest players in Lebanese politics. It's not just some group out running around with guns. In Lebanon, it is a very powerful entity. So if Iran is indeed supporting Hezbollah, they're supporting the government of Lebanon. A big portion of it. They're not supporting just random terrorists blowing things up. Now, they allege that Iran is supporting people in Yemen. Well, right now, Yemen is being bombed by Saudi Arabia. There's just a huge onslaught of, bombing and killing by Saudi Arabia. The USA is backing Saudi Arabia and just bombing and destroying Yemen. And the allegation is that Iran is supporting Houthis, or the Ansarullah group in Yemen that is fighting against Saudi Arabia. Again, if Saudi Arabia is invading and attacking Yemen, people are resisting. Again, is this terrorism? I mean, I haven't seen the proof. I'm not speaking for Iran. I don't know if they're actually supporting these forces, but to call that terrorism is a bit of a stretch. So the allegation is that because Iran is allegedly supporting these groups, that's not following the spirit of the agreement, and the spirit of the agreement was that Iran wouldn't do such things. Well, that gets to be a little bit confusing. Because at this point, who's to say what the spirit is? The spirit of the agreement is not in writing. The agreement is in writing, and everyone agrees, including Donald Trump, that Iran has followed it. They gave up their nuclear power, as they agreed. They've turned over their uranium. So what's the issue? This is very scary. The idea that there could be a war between the USA and Iran is a very, very scary prospect. Iran is much bigger than Iraq. Iran has a huge military force. It's got a huge base of supporters among the population who are loyal to the revolution. I have been to Iran, and let me tell you, the Iranian people are not ready to surrender. They're not. It's not like Iraq, where you have a really unpopular government that is kind of teetering and people in huge amounts of poverty. The Iranian government has really developed Iran. They built highways. They've really just kind of raised that country up in terms of status, and they have a huge military apparatus. So the idea of war with Iran is very scary, especially if you keep in mind that both Russia and China are big supporters of the Iranian government. They're very economically connected to Iran. They do business with Iran. They're very friendly to Iran. They sell weapons to Iran. When I was in Iran, I saw that everyone had Chinese cell phones, right? The sanctions make it hard for them to buy American cell phones, so they have Huawei. They have Chinese cell phones. So Iran is part of this kind of global opposition to U.S. power that has developed. And Iran is now, it's facing these sanctions from the USA, and there's attacks on them. And the idea that the nuclear agreement would be decertified, if anything, that'll simply isolate the United States, because the European countries want to keep the agreement intact. Europe is very in support of this agreement, and they've said that even if Donald Trump decertifies it, they're going to keep following the agreement. So at this point, the idea that Donald Trump would decertify the agreement, it's almost like he's making a pro-Israeli statement, because Israel has opposed the agreement from day one. He's pandering to fanatical Israel supporters who really hate Iran. But when it gets down to it, it wouldn't really do anything to help anyone, and Europe wouldn't go along with it, and so the agreement would mostly stay intact. All that would happen was that the business between the U.S. and Iran, and agreements and business deals, would be less likely to take place, and it's just a bad idea. So we need to follow this closely. We'll see if Donald Trump actually decertifies the Iran nuclear agreement for the United States.